Hello and welcome to the Frugal Crafters YouTube channel where we are going to do a live oil pastel painting today. If you could please let me know in the comments if you can see my desk and hear me talk, that would be great. So I know I'm not talking into an empty void. And we're gonna get into an oil pastel demo. I also want to let you know if you would like to ask any questions as we're going along here today, please type the word question in all caps and then ask your question in normal upper and lower caps so YouTube doesn't kick it out. But the upper caps question will let me, it'll catch my eye when I look back and I take breaks from questions. Generally, what I'll do is I will paint for a while and then I'll take a question break. So if you're watching this tutorial on replay and you don't want to hear the Q&A and the chatter, then you can just go right ahead. You can skip ahead at those portions. That way, hopefully it'll be useful and fun for the folks here live as well as the people joining us for the replay. And let's see, I'm just going to look at the chat right now to see if people can see and hear me. Hopefully, oh, good people can hear me. And I think there were a couple questions posted before we went live, like from the other day, and I don't see them. So if you previously asked a question, please let me know so I can answer it. I apologize. Sometimes they go away. I don't know why. I think I just saw a question, but once we start painting, it'll run a lot smoother. I'm a little out of practice in the live streaming. I don't think I've done one in a couple of months, so we may have a little bit of a rough road here for a minute or so. Okay. I don't see, I thought I could have sworn I just saw a question, but maybe it was me typing instructions on how to say questions. All right, we're going to get right into it. Please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy these live streams. I would like to do more if people are interested. So this is our reference photo. It's a pretty basic print. It didn't print out super high quality, but basically enough to give me a reference. We're going to do a landscape here. I thought this was really pretty with a little stone wall and the little the fields and the trees and the sky and the mountains in the distance and this little fenced in area. So that's our reference. And I think I did link it in the video description if you are interested. And I also have a link to my supply list on Amazon, just because it's easier to put everything in the supply list. But you can also find these supplies at Blick Art Materials, Jerry's Artorama, most art supply stores, or find something that will work. The paper that we're going to use today is the Canson XL dry mixed media paper. And this is not great for wet mixed media. Anytime I've added water or anything liquid to this, it does not work great, but it works wonderfully for our dry media like our oil pastels and colored pencils. You just have to be very careful if you want to add any solvents to them because this paper does not like it. But it's got a very subtle, almost, it's not sanded at all, but it's got a little bit of a pebbly texture to it that is just really nice for oil pastels. And I'm using gray, and I like both. They both come in gray and natural, and it's very affordable. You can get like 40 sheets of the 9x12 for around $8 at Blick and on Amazon if it's in stock. And the 11x14 I think is around $10 on Blick. I know Blick was out of the 9x12 because we did have quite an influx of students purchasing that. Little cat hair there. And I tape it down on all four sides, and I actually use the full width of the tape because that gives me area to handle the painting so that I'm not smudging the pastel after I'm done. And then I can either wrap this with glassine and store it until I'm ready to frame it, or I could spray it with some fixative. But that's up to you if you want to do it. I don't find that fixative changes the color with oil pastels as much as it does when I'm using soft pastels, the chalky kind. So, if you want to use it, you can. I use a Sennelier brand. It is expensive, but it's a good product. So, whatever you want to do is fine. Or just wrap it with glassine or tracing paper or something to protect it from getting smudged on other things. I have my little color wheel here, mostly for visual interest while I was kind of color balancing and whatnot. We do use that in the class. It's not required, but it is kind of nice to have because then you can check your values on the back side as well. And for tools, I've got some palette knives and I've got some silicone tipped tools. These are my tools through Craft Stash, but obviously you can use any sort of silicone tip tools you have, and they're very affordable on Amazon. If you look for nail art tools. I've got a large brush for brushing away crumbs when needed, and just a pencil, your basic stuff. Now, in a lot of our lessons that we do in Oil Pastels Made Easy, we actually sketch a picture, but because it's not a great idea to do a lot of drawing on your fine art paper, even though this is an affordable paper, you still want to sketch if it's something complicated on copy paper and then transfer it with transfer paper. So that's why I have a ballpoint pen in there for transferring. But since we're doing a landscape, we can fudge details a little bit. We don't have to be too precious or precise. We can move things around. We can go ahead and sketch that either with a color pencil, a regular pencil, or our oil pastels. And we are going to start right in by sketching with I think I'll sketch with a colored pencil. I want to make sure you can see it, but I don't want it to be too dark. But I think I'll do the technique where we sketch with a pink pencil, and I might have to go with a darker one. If this shows up on camera, I'll stick with it. I'll go with a darker one if it doesn't, but you could sketch with whatever and keep your lines light if you want to. All right, I'm going to start with, well, you know what? I'm going to bring this over here so you can see while I'm sketching. Kind of like how if I was in the classroom, you have the photo on the screen while we're drawing and painting. So we'll just pretend. I don't know how to do that in a live stream. I'm sure there's a way, but I only know in my editing software. So I'm going to start by putting in this hill right here. And hopefully that shows, that's not going to show up well enough for you. You can use a light pink pencil. Or a regular pencil, but I want to make sure you can see it. So I'm going to use this magenta. It's fun to use magenta when you're sketching a landscape because the greens will really pop. Now I've got a couple like mountains back here. I'll sketch them in with this pencil, but generally I would just do it with the pastel. I don't think we really need to have them in there, but just for your reference, I'm going to go ahead and put them in. Now we've got this road that's kind of coming along. You can see the hill. There's like a hill going all the way across there. It's like a stone wall. And then we've got this road kind of coming down like that. Notice it's getting a little wider as it comes forward, but then we've got little dips in the road here. We've got a little hill. That's going to make the road kind of come over a little bit. Now, if you do need to erase on this paper, you can use a kneaded eraser. And, good, I actually have it out. And you can kind of lift up. The oil pastel will have no problem whatsoever covering over your colored pencil. So, don't fret if you can't get the stain off your paper. So let's see, we got that hill. And that's going to bring the road over a little bit. And that's going to turn. We've got this stone wall. It's very interesting, actually. And this is a little bit wider than my picture, so I'm probably not going to be able to get everything in there, but that's all right. I'm going to get this side of the wall here. And that's just going to kind of come off the edge. And draw the thickness and the sides of the wall. And it's like rugged. So the fact that it's rugged means you don't have to fret too much about anything, really. You're going to see parts of it where you'll see the thickness of it, parts of it where you'll see the sides of it, depending on where on the hill it is. And we really don't need to be putting too much detail in here. Put the top of the wall on that side. And actually over here, you're not seeing too much of the wall thickness. Oh, I want to bring that up. Oh, you know what? I got confused because I had the road. I had more of the road sketched, and I was confused with the wall. The wall's going to be back a bit here. The wall's going to come off the side. And so when you sketch on paper and then you transfer it, you only transfer your good lines so you don't have so much of a mess, but that's all right. We'll be fine. Oh yeah, and that hill there, well, that hill kind of comes down, and then we get another hill that's kind of coming in that way, and there's like a little fence and a stone wall there, or yeah, it's like a stone wall going up there. So yeah, we've got a lot of little details here. We might not put all them in, but we'll start with them. Anyway, we get this little hut. I don't even know if I want that hut in there, but we'll just draw it in there for right now. This little barn kind of. Can't see the, we're seeing it straight on really, so. And just like got the little pen, we got a little pen, probably for sheep. Looks very Scottish or something. It doesn't look like you'd have sheep on this little countryside. I got a little tree over there. I'm not going to put the tree in because we're just gonna we'll be covering over that. We got another little bit of stone wall. Actually, stone wall. Does it match up? It almost does actually. A little stone wall would be over here. And oh, there's another one back there. These stone walls, they are rich with stone walls here. And that matches up there. So try to find the areas that match up. And that's all right. That's all right. That's good enough. Good enough for today's demo. And we're going to start with the sky. Now, I have a selection of harder pastels, these Pentel pastels here. They run about at most $10 for 50. They've been on sale on Blick and Amazon for around $7 or $8 for a set of 50. I highly recommend these if you're starting out and you're not sure what to get, or if you even like oil pastels. We're probably doing about 70% of the work in class with this set. And the remainder of the work we're doing with this set here. And these are the Light Wish oil pastels. They're around $30 and they're very soft. They're almost like these are like lipstick, and this is like an eyeliner crayon. If you want something to kind of give you an idea of how soft or hard they are. Now, generally I start with these, but if there's an area I know I need to be blended, like the sky, I'd probably just go right in with the soft pastels, the softer oil pastels. Now, the term soft pastels refers to generally, it refers to the chalky kind of pastels. They're like pigment and clay, not really chalk, but that sort of texture. But within soft pastels or oil pastels, you're going to have hard ones and soft ones. So everything I'm referring to today is oil pastels. And let's see, our sky isn't super vibrant. So I'm going to choose some colors that are not really bright. Now these are so soft that look, just by picking them up, I'm getting some on my thumb. So just to kind of keep that in mind, if that's something that bothers you, you may want to have like a little bit of like maybe wear some gloves, or what I do is I keep some just rubbing alcohol that you would have in your medicine cabinet, and I spray it on a paper towel and I'll wipe my hands and my tools as needed. All right, so what I'm going to do first is take a little bit of color here. I've got 3 colors that I kind of want to mix together, and I'm just going to add them very lightly in the sky area. Very, very lightly, because these softer ones are going to blend together very easily, and I don't want to have too much pigment down. When you ever get into that situation when you're creating with oil pastels and it just feels like you've got a big greasy mess and you can't layer anything over on top and it's frustrating, it's probably because you're using a lot of softer oil pastels and you're not using any harder oil pastels. And I get it. It's fun to mix and blend those really rich and creamy lipstick-like pastels, but it's kind of like you need that variety in order to layer up and get the realism that you wish to get with oil pastels. Now for this darker color here, I'm only going to add that towards the top. Really look, I'm barely holding on to this. That's how soft these are. I'm barely giving any pressure and I'm just skimming it across the surface. Now I will drag in a little bit of that color down low because I want to blend these tones together because they have slightly different undertones. This one's a little bit more of a neutral blue. This one has a little bit of a green undertone, and this has more green, but also a little bit of a grayish undertone. Now I'm going to go in with some white. Now the Light Wish set has it's got 5 whites, I think, in it. So it's 48 colors, but there's 52 pastels. So you get 4 extra whites, which is really nice because you do go through whites a lot, especially the soft whites for highlights. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a lot of white down towards the bottom, and I'm lightening up my pressure as I go towards the top. Now you can blend with your finger. What I like to do is I have these little these little, they're actually meant for if you use hot glue to keep you from burning your fingers. You don't want to burn your hands off. And they're like finger protectants. They're from Mod Podge, but I think Dollar Tree actually sells them as well, but under their own brand. And I like these because then I can really blend this stuff in and not, you know, not wear down my fingerprints or anything. So I'm telling you, if crafters ever want to turn to a life of crime, they would be perfect because they probably have no fingerprints left from hot glue gun use. Now, depending on how much coverage you want, you could go over and add more. Like if you're seeing the grain of the paper. And the other thing about this versus using a blending stump or using a paper towel folded up, you get very little residue on this. So your product that you're paying for is actually going on to your paper. And you're wasting less. So that's another reason I love the silicone tip tools. I'm going to go over with a little bit more of this greenish blue because I think that's really an interesting, nice color. And take a little bit more of the white. And I like starting in a sky because a little bit more of the darker, kind of more neutral blue. It just kind of gets you warmed up a little bit. All right, I'm going to start here, blending here in the lighter area and blending up and overlapping I'm overlapping the areas in front. So when I'm doing oil pastels, I'm working from back to front. And that way I don't have to like try to work around stuff so much. And I don't end up with awkward areas around my subjects. And that's how I tend to go at it kind of like I would a painting. Okay, now I'm looking at my monitor. That does seem like it's a lot bluer than what it looks like to me. But it is a little bit on the dark side, so I am gonna go in with some more white and lighten it up a little bit. Now, if you're layering up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't get any more to stick. What you can do is you can leave it alone for a little bit and it will firm up a bit. You could stick it in the fridge or your freezer, and that will help it firm up a bit so that you can work with it without it feeling greasy. But if you want blending, you want to be keep working on the area until you have it blended the way you want, because once it firms up, it's softer. The pastels get softer and easier to blend when they're warm and when there's friction here. And this friction, like from this tool, is making it want to blend really easily. All right, I think that's a little bit better. It does look a little bit blue, but it's not as blue in real life as it looks on my monitor anyways. Now, if you're seeing marks from the silicone tool that you don't like, you can go in with your fingers and you can try blending with that to see if you like that texture better. I try to go edge to edge so I don't leave fingerprints and so I don't leave weird marks. And it will not feel this greasy once it's set up a bit. So even though oil pastels don't dry, they do kind of firm up a bit. And then I would just wipe my finger on a paper towel. If I need to, I can add a little alcohol to it, but if not, just wipe it off. And then we're going to work on these kind of little mountainy areas in the back. I'm going to go with, I think I'll actually go in with my harder pastels now because I do have a little bit of color down there, and I'm using this Pentel in deep gray. I'm going to actually bring this up a little bit higher so I can overlap that. Oh, we do have one back there that's a little bit lighter, so I'm going to take a lighter gray and just fill that in. You can see the harder ones have a little bit of a crumbly, can have a little crumbly texture, and you might be able to tap that off over the trash, but that's when I would come in after things had firmed up and just brush over it with my soft brush. And I can go in if I've got like an area I want to smooth, I'll go in with my silicone tools. You can see that pink a little bit. That's not bothering me though. You wouldn't see it if you drew with a lighter pink. Okay, so I'm going to fill this in with the darker gray area. Now, my printout also was much lighter than what the photo looked like. I think I need to add a new cartridge to my printer. I'm going to take some of the colors from the sky and actually add that into this little, this faraway hill. Whatever colors you use for the sky. If you want your sky a little bit more purpley, that's fine. You can go ahead and add more of a purpley color to it. I'm going to take the lighter gray and add some of that in as well. So different brands have different hardnesses. The Pastels are just such a reliable and affordable brand that's why I recommend them. Craypaw is also very similar in texture. They might be a little bit softer, but they are on the harder side. Mungio is softer. It's not quite as soft as Lightwish. I don't believe it's kind of more in the middle. Neo Pastel by Caran d'Ache is on the harder side. It comes down to what do you use the most, as to what you might want to invest in. Now over here, we're going to do our lighter. This has a little bit warmer, lighter tone to it. So I'm going to start in with this lighter gray. What's this called anyway? Light gray. Truth in Advertising. That's nice. And I'm actually going to shape this a little bit differently because I think it's got more of a steeper shape like that. There's kind of a darker kind of crevice in here. So I'm going to go put that in. Now you'll find that light tends to overtake dark with oil pastel. So I will tend to go with my darks first a lot of the time, and then add lights on top of it to like blend things out. And the lessons in Oil Pastel Made Easy are broken up so that, take a little bit of a brown to warm it up in there a bit too. So you've got like a lesson for the drawing. And if you don't want to draw, you can avail yourself to the pattern that's included. There'll be a lesson on one lesson might just be doing the sky if it's kind of like a sunset or something more involved. And it's broken up so that you're not going to be overwhelmed. And if you only have like 20 minutes a day to paint, you can do one lesson and leave your piece to set. Because generally, when we're breaking at a point where you want to let your pastels firm up a bit. This color, yellow gray, is really useful. I tend to use it quite a bit. I'll show you what I mean about the brush here. And this is an old watercolor brush, but I don't use it for watercolor anymore. Just want to give you the heads up there. Just any sort of really soft brush. And then I'm just going to brush it over my tray there, but you can just brush off any little crumbs. That one's probably a little too warm to brush off right now. I can try. Yeah, it's a little too warm and sticky. And then when I want to clean this, I take a dry paper towel and I just rub it on a dry paper towel. If it's really dirty, I'll spray the paper towel with alcohol, then I'll wipe it on that. But unless you're switching to a different medium and you're going to paint with it, you don't really need to wash it. So if you have like kind of an older frayed watercolor brush you're not using for watercolor anymore, that would be really good. I just want a little texture there, so I'm not going to get too fussy with it. Just want to get a little bit of something down there. And kind of, I kind of want to bring that down a little bit. Didn't have the sky color down long enough, I don't think, down far enough. All right, I'm going to look at the chat, see if there's any questions. If you're watching the replay and you want to skip ahead, go right ahead. And we'll be back to the painting in just a moment. Like I mentioned before, if you want to ask a question, use the word question in all caps and type the rest of your question in upper and lower case. Question from Paul Age Art. Does using the clear gesso work for adding to the smoother paper when using oil pastels as well as regular pastels? Yes, Liquitex clear gesso. Not all clear gessos have that grittiness, but Liquitex clear gesso works great for that. Okay. I see you guys asking each other questions. That's awesome. Thank you all for helping each other. Virginia asks, anyone remember the different purchasing in the Pentel and the Lightwish? Do we need both from the class? Virginia, if you already have pastels, you bring what you have, try what you have, and then see if you need anything beyond that. But the reason why you want both is because the softer Lightwish ones will layer on top of the harder Pentel ones. But if you could only pick one, go with the Pentel, the harder ones. They're cheaper and they're more versatile. Sorry for the dead air. Just scrolling back and reading. Andrea asks, I have Paul Rubens Haya oil pastels. The paper has become oily on the sticks. Is that normal? Yeah, that happens sometimes, especially with your softer pastels. What I do is I will just take a paper towel and I'll wipe them off. In fact, I'll show you how I store my pastels in general because I'll keep them all together. I'll take a paper towel and I will just go because, like on that one, you can see it's Paul Rubens one. Paul Rubens ones tend to have that problem more than other brands. I think it's because they're really, really soft. I'll just go through and wipe them like that. And then I'll roll them and I'll wipe them again just to kind of quickly clean off the oil. But it won't hurt anything. It's just because they're such a soft pencil, they're so oily. And nature of the beast for those real soft ones, I guess. Somebody says, are missing parts because of the ads? Do you mean there's been ads playing during the live stream? I don't think I have. I didn't think I had ads enabled to go during the live stream, but don't worry. In the replay, everything's saved and it will be there. YouTube's been doing weird things with ads. I'm not exactly sure what they're up to. Christine asks, would the Paul Rubens Haya be appropriate substitute for the Light Wish pastels? Yes, the Haya will be perfect for the Light Wish. They're a very soft pastel. The key is you just want a variety so that you can lay down what you want to and layer up what you want to. It just gives you greater versatility. Brands really don't matter as long as they have um, that variety. Oh yeah, Brenda's saying, I love supporting Lindsay by watching ads, but I don't like them during lives. Yeah, I thought, oh, well, I said I wasn't going to put any in live, but maybe they're doing it on my behalf. Sorry about that. Rag Trends asks, how do you determine if you will use mixed media paper versus sanded? Is sanded better for soft pastels? Well, these are oil pastels. For my actually top pick for oil pastel is the Canson dry mixed media, just because the texture of it is just ideal for oil pastels in my opinion. And I prefer this to the expensive pastel mat when I'm doing oil pastels. But yeah, I generally choose the paper based on what I'm going to use for media. And I just happen to really like this, and it's so affordable that I recommend it, and it's acid free. I believe it's acid free. It should be. So yeah, you just really can't beat that price. I just want to catch up on these early questions before I continue on. When Scarlett asks, can I use Neocolor 2 for the oil pastel course? I've had that question a lot, and I would say yes, if you're comfortable and you're pretty familiar with Neocolor 2, because there will be a little bit of transcribing you're going to have to do. The first thing is I would do your paintings half the size of what I'm doing. Instead of using the silicone tip tools, you want to use a synthetic brush and a smaller one than this, but this is what I have handy. Dip, and when I'm blending with the silicone tools, what you'd want to do is dip your brush, just the bristles in water, and then squeeze off the extra water and then blend with that rather than a silicone tool. And I think if you make those concessions, by working smaller and doing that with a brush, you'll be fine to follow along. Given if you're comfortable with Neocolor 2s, if you've done my watercolor crayon workshop, you should have all the skills you need to transcribe those lessons. And you can see whether you think that you might want to add oil pastels as well, because I do make water-soluble oil pastels. Mungio makes some, Crayola makes some, and they're quite nice, actually. I don't know if you'd want to use this paper for those, though. You might want to use a watercolor paper. All right, I think I'm caught up unless any questions just came in. Oh, we have from Providence Valley Farm. Do you ever use a method to warm up your pastels when working? You can if you're finding that they don't blend very well, but my studio, I do heat it while I'm working in here, but I don't really find the need to, especially if I'm using a variety of hard and soft pastels, but you certainly can. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't find I need to. Nicole, I am using Canson XL dry mixed media paper. There's a link in the video description with all of the supplies. Linda asks, do you have any white paper when laying down? Do you leave any white paper when laying down color? I just tape the edges so I have something to handle, but I tend to fill the tooth. That's my personal look. You don't have to do that. I like the look of that because it gives it more of an oil painting look. Martine asks, how long is the discount available on the oil pastel course? It is, from Glasgow, Scotland. Hello. It is good till the end of the month. Linda asks, "Do you leave?" Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I answered that one already. Um, and then we have another question about the new. Oh no, this one's about the new neo arts. Can they be used in your oil pastel class, even though they're more of a neocolor one? I think that those will struggle because they are such a hard pastel. You won't get the blending, and I think it would be a little frustrating. So Neocolor twos blend a little bit more than the new Neo Arts, where they you can blend them with water. If you want to try them, go ahead, but I don't think they're gonna translate as well. In my opinion, obviously do what you want, but I would recommend a Neo Pastel or the pastels that I have listed in the class. Melissa asks, are the Blick store brand oil pastel hard or soft? They're very inexpensive. Saw them in store recently and was considering. I don't know. I've never used any of their pastels. I've used their colored pencils and I'm not a fan. But if anybody has used the Blick oil pastels and can give some information, that would be great. I've never used them. The Pentels are really hard to beat. You get 50 for like $8. Okay, I think I'm caught up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to keep working forward and we're going to work in this area back here. I'm going to put the hills in before I put in the stone wall, and I'm going to look at the colors I have. Those are always going to be on my tray, and you can have a box lid here, whatever you have. These are some flocked trays that came with my Prismacolor pencils a million years ago. I am going to grab some kind of muted colors because there's not a ton of colors in this set. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a ton of colors. I will often go for the value. And what I mean by that is if I look at this picture, I'm saying, okay, what's the color's kind of like a yellow ochre-y, sagey green color. My yellow ochre is really dark, okay? And when you have to choose between a color and a value, go for the value. So if I look at that yellow ochre here, that's like, I would say that's about 60%. But if I look at the background there, I kind of hold it up to my window and I look, gosh, that's closer to 20%. So I don't want something that dark. I want it kind of hazy and light. So I'm going to look here. Maybe I'll take a little yellow ochre just to give it a little bit of color. We do have a hill back there. That's why I left that blank, I guess. I'll do that for a little bit of color. Then I'll take something that's a better value and I will blend over it. So I get that little hint of color, but I'm really respecting the value because you could have your colors crazy. If your values are right, it's not going to matter. So I'm going to throw in just very, very light shading of some of this golden color here and there, this yellow ochre. But then I'm going to use colors that are a little bit closer in value. Like this is still a little too dark, but I do want a little bit of green in there. This is called green gray. I want to keep these colors. The painting is not a really saturated painting. So, and it's less saturated towards the further away from the viewer you are. So I want to be really mindful of that I don't get this too bright back here. I even grabbed this old rose color because I thought that would actually work really well in these kind of far away colors because the value's right. And I also think this little pinky purpley color will make the gold and the green look kind of, it will desaturate them a bit, but it'll also complement them because the pink and the green are opposites. Now, somebody asked about leaving some of the white of the paper. This paper is gray. So this being gray gives us kind of that middle tone, and it just helps us determine value a little bit better because you're already starting kind of in the middle. And sometimes when you're on a white sheet of paper, you get a little timid with your values. So that's another thing that's really nice. But if I wanted this kind of like soft texture of like grasses and fields in the background, I could let some of the sparkles show, some of that white of the paper show, or gray of the paper as it is. But it's mainly just showing the texture of the pastel. I think I want to make that come up a little bit higher back there. There's so many hills, they're going to overlap some of the background areas. And I will almost kind of work as if the fence isn't there and kind of work over it a bit. When in doubt, I want to fill in those like little gaps. This is like a peachy, it's called pale brown, but it's almost like an apricot color. Very, very light, dry kind of strokes here. And if I'm not putting a lot of pastel down, I know I'll still be able to add the softer stuff on top if I want to. I'm gonna bring that sky up a little bit just so I don't have a gap when I go to put the fence in. I really like the way this old rose looks. I think it gives it a really soft, pretty, almost impressionistic look. Please be sure to give the video a thumbs up. Now let's see, I do want some more green patches, especially as we come further down. And I want there's kind of like some reddish like bushes over there. I think a couple colors here that I think would work pretty well. I think I'll start with this. It's just called brown, but it's very orangey. It's got a lot of residue on it, so I'm just gonna wipe that off. And I'm just gonna put that kind of scrubby bushes kind of over here. I'm using the texture of the paper to kind of help me sell the fact that there's little bushes there. I'm not gonna put every detail in because it's really too small, and pastels are kind of chunky, so it's definitely more for, I think with landscapes, it's more of an impressionistic look that we get with these. Now, I'm not someone who does a ton of landscapes. I tend to prefer still lifes in general, but I like to have a variety of subjects when I'm teaching so that so you can see what's possible and what's available. Okay. So for when I have to do something really detailed, like say I want to put a tree in there, at that point, because they're so far away, what I would do is I would use a colored pencil. So there is a pretty distinct tree right there. And let's see, I want to have it a little more off center. So I'm going to bring it over here. And it's actually kind of in front of, actually a little bit lower here. I need to pull in a little bit more stuff there, but we'll do that with a pencil when we get to that point. I got to bring in a little bit more of that red. I think I'll put in this more red color. It's almost like a low ground cover I have here. Remember, if you have questions for the next time I take questions, go ahead and type just the word question in all caps, but then type the question in regular lowercase because YouTube will sometimes boot out when everything's all caps. But it's just me running the show today from my studio, so I won't be able to catch them otherwise because I'm just quickly skimming through. So I minimize the amount of dead air that's occurring. Now, as we work down the page, I am going to add more greens without dulling them down with that peachy color because I want the colors to get a little bit more vibrant. I'll add a little bit of the yellow ochre in there too. Let those colors get a little bit more vibrant. Things far away are more hazy. Also, warmer colors can advance, so I might go a little bit heavier with the yellow ochre just to kind of get that pulling effect of something coming forward. And I'm leaving some of the texture of the paper showing here just because I think it looks nice to have that little bit of texture. It does some of the work for us. And I think I'm going to just fill that in because I don't want to have to I don't want to have to fill it in later. I don't really like those big strokes there. Now that's personal preference, but I feel like I would like to. I've got this bit here that broke off. I'm gonna just try to obscure those distinct marks a bit. All right. And so we've got these kind of stone wall kind of crossing the page at this point. We also have our road. The road has a lot of blue in it and a lot of gray in it, but I don't want to use those really soft ones yet because they can kind of clog up the works a little bit. So I'm going to start off with the gray that we used in the mountain back there. And I'm going to fill in our road here. I am filling it in pretty with a firm pressure so that it does fill the tooth of the paper. But it's going to be easier to build the wall around the road once we have the road in. Now, when you start to wear the pastel down to the point where you can't like color with it anymore, with these pentel ones, they want to let go of the whole wrapper at once. So I just try to make a little rip so that I can still keep some color, some of the wrapper on there, because pastels without the wrapper will be a little bit more prone to breakage. They'll still work fine. I don't find that I want to break my oil pastels like I do soft pastels, but when I do have them broken, I do find I use them on their edges a little bit more. So, don't worry when you start wearing down your pastels. Those little short stubby pieces are going to be great for a lot of different effects. And don't feel bad about buying a new pastel. Like if you get that gray and it's down that long, order a new pastel, and then you'll have the as on cue, you'll have the shorter piece to use for techniques like this. All right, so with that, I want to grab maybe like a dull, dark blue, like this color here, and I want to add a little bit of the shadow here. This is very similar to the darker blue that we had. It's probably a little darker than the blue that we had in the sky. I'm adding it where we have more shadow. Our light, if we look at this picture, it seems that the light is coming down from this direction. And like, because you can see from that tree, there's a little shadow going over the stone wall. This side of the stone wall is in shadow, where that side of the stone wall is fully lit up. And you can see the shadow on the edge of the stone wall there. So you want to keep that in mind when you're painting. Even if it's a clear day landscape, you usually, unless it's noontime, you're going to have a little bit of a direction from the light. So just you want to keep that in mind. Sometimes I'll even take a pencil and I will draw a little arrow just so I know the light direction. So don't be afraid to do that. And if you don't want to draw on your paper, you can always take a little piece of tape and stick it up in the corner and draw an arrow on that. But that can help you stay mindful of which way your light is going. So I'm using this darker color also to put in just some directional wear lines on the road. And actually, there's a little bit of grass that goes around there. So if you accidentally put in too much pastel where you don't need it, what you can do is take a palette knife and you can scratch it out. So then you can lay on a different color. There are no mistakes, only teachable moments. And then just to clean off your palette knife, you just wipe it on a rag. Palette knives and silicone knives and silicone tools are great for that. I'm just going to fill that in with the olive green just so I don't forget what the heck I had going on there. Think, talk, paint, run a live stream. There's only so much I can do. And we're going to have some yellow ochre on this side of the road here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in so I don't get confused over where the road ends and the wall starts, because we do have this little barrier of grass right up against the wall. And I know it looks a little crazy right now, but we'll get there. Don't worry. We will We will do it. We will get there. And I think, let's see if I have a darker gray yet. I do. I have this darker gray. Don't worry about your colors being too vibrant because it's really easy to desaturate in oil pastels. You can just either go over and add an opposite color. So by that, I mean, so say that's really too blue. I would say, okay, blue, what's the opposite of blue? The opposite of blue is orange. A desaturated orange is brown. So I can add orange or brown over the blue if I need to break it down. That's where a color wheel can come in handy. And we do discuss color theory and values a bit in the course. I do try to keep it fairly basic so that it doesn't confuse more than inspire and inform. But that's something that you can do with the oil pastels because they don't dry. They are active and you can always go blend back into them, which I think is just outstanding. It's one of the things I really love about oil pastels. They're so much like oil paint in that way. And I know this looks really messy and really childlike, but we're not done yet. You just have to trust that that it's going to turn out okay. Just trust me. Just trust me. We're going to be fine. Actually, I think a little bit of that pink, that old rose color would be really nice in the highlight of the road, and it would help tie some of those colors together. So I'm going to go ahead, because again, values, we look at values more than color. And this is just the right color I need for the highlight. So in the road. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this old rose color for that. And the hot mess stage is real with oil pastels. You're going to have that hot mess stage. Now I'm going to see if I can blend this a little bit and add that direction in on the road. I'm just going to wipe off any stuff on my thing here. Yes, it will blend. I'll even try to blend down any crumbs, so integrate them in and not waste the material. If you're purchasing these and they're not the Mod Podge ones, just make sure they don't have little dimples on them, because they make these very similar ones that are meant for like as thimbles for sewing, but they've got these little grippy things on them. You don't want that because that will leave a texture in your work and it's kind of annoying. So just make sure they're smooth. So I don't know what the Dollar Tree has. I know they had little packs of hot glue finger protectors that look like this. So as long as they don't have texture on them, they're going to work fine. They even make little finger cots that look like the tips of rubber gloves that probably would work. I like these because I can keep using it. I can just wipe them off and use them again and again and again. I don't have to buy anything new. All right, that's good enough to leave for a bit. I am going to take another little question break. So if you're watching the replay and you want to skip ahead, feel free. Otherwise, you can listen to some questions and catch up if you're painting along. Now, let's see. I feel like I need to change glasses when I do this too, because I have my my progressives on. I'm looking for the word question in all caps. So when you post your questions, please do that so it catches my eye. Wilcox Mama asks, what's the right consistency of the page for your oil pastel? I feel like I overblend. I'm not sure. Do you mean like if you have a textured paper, it should allow you to put a lot of pastel down. And then if you start with your harder pastels and you work softer ones over them, you can kind of control how much blending you want. If you don't want it to blend and you want to see marks and texture, use your harder pastels. If you want a lot of blending like we did in the sky, use the soft pastels. I feel like it's kind of one of those things you really need to do it and get that experience in and get that time at the table down in order to kind of know what to do. It's kind of like telling somebody how to drive versus putting them behind the wheel and teaching them how to drive. Tracy asks, are the Pentel pastels open stock, or is the opportunity to upgrade the pastel? I think you'd have to upgrade to like a Caran d'Ache Neo pastel. Beyond that, they do sell class packs where there's like 12 of each color, but it's only like 12 colors. So if you happen to use those basic 12 a lot, it's probably a good idea. But I mean, these are so cheap. It's like $7 for 50. So if you're using up like 10 pastels, I think I would just buy another box if you didn't want to go to the Neo pastels. But the Neo pastels will last you longer because they have more pigment and the sticks are a little bit bigger. So that's probably what I would do. Let's see. Rebecca asks, do you ever use something to liquefy or paint with your oil pastels, or is it better to get water soluble oil pastels? Can you use the pastels? Can you use the water soluble oil pastels over and under the oil pastel? If you're going to use water soluble pastels, I would keep them just to water soluble pastels. I think they feel a little bit more greasy, so I think you would run into issues. And then if you ever wanted to blend one or the other, then if you added water, you'd only blend the water soluble, and if you added solvent, you'd only blend the solvent kind. So I wouldn't mix them. Like, you can mix water mixable and traditional oil paint, they just make them less water mixable. With oil pastels, I would do one or the other, but you could definitely use water soluble oil pastels for these. I've used the Mungio and the Prima, and which I think are the same as the Mungio. They feel the same to me, and the Crayola, and those all work great. And yeah, we're not using Gamsol to liquefy in this class. I mean, I do show how it works, but we're not using that because the Gamsol is not very compatible with this paper. But you can do that, absolutely. Especially if you want to, we use a palette sometimes, and I'll cut some pastel off and put it in a palette and kind of mix it up if I don't have the right color, or if I want to apply it with a palette knife. And you could add Gamsol to this and make it more painty, and then use a brush or a palette knife to apply it. So it's one of the wonderful versatile things about oil pastel, but we're not really getting into that because I do know some people are bothered by solvents, and I work in an enclosed area in the winter, so I really didn't want to have a bunch of open solvents going either. Renee asks, do you always work top down? Guessing this helps smearing. Usually, but it's more I'm working back to front. So I'm always overlapping a layer, so I always have a crisp, clean edge. But you can lay a piece of like parchment paper or tracing paper down and rest your hand on it, or use an artist bridge, which is like a little bridge that you could rest your hands on too, if you want to work in a different portion of your paper first. Okay, I think I'm caught up. Oh, I've got another one right here. Oh, I think I got a couple new. I'll answer the other ones that just came in. Providence Valley Farm asks, do you ever have trouble with the tips pulling off your silicone painting tools? Even with my expensive ones, I've had the tips come off. Yeah, now and then. Now and then, what I do if I see the tips are getting kind of long, I will just kind of twist and push it right back in. Yeah, it's happened with different brands. Just yeah, it usually happens when I'm cleaning them. Yeah, it's hard because what do you use to glue silicone? I don't know. Empty Nest Scrapper asks, what are the different mediums called? Why are all the mediums called pastels, and how do they differ from each other? Well, they're called pastels because I believe that's a French word for crayon. You have wax pastels that are hard like wax crayons. Like that would be like the Neo Art crayon by Caran d'Ache, the Neo Color one, and like the Prismacolor Art Stick. Those are crayon products. Then you have water soluble crayon products like the Eye Crayon, the Neocolor 2, the Lyra Aqua Color. Those are, they may be called like a water soluble wax pastel or wax oil pastel, water soluble. They're a crayon, they're a water soluble crayon. They are harder than oil pastels. Then you've got the oil pastels, and they range from the hard versions to the soft version, but they're all oil pastel. And then you've got water soluble oil pastels, which are again soft like oil pastels. They just can be diluted with water. So yeah, they call them all pastels, I think, because it's basically a French word for crayon. And I think just to confuse people. So they'll buy everything and try everything, maybe. I don't know. I guess there's only so many. I try to be really specific when I refer to products so people don't buy the wrong things. Okay. I believe we are. Yes, we're caught up. Okay. So I like that texture in there. And for time purposes, I'm going to leave it like the way it is because I think that it kind of effortlessly adds some nice texture. Now I'm going to work on our little fences, and I'm actually going to start with this light gray for this side because this is very light. I'm going to just fill in, actually, there's a little gate here. So I'm going to open that gate up with this yellow ochre and bring some of the yellow ochre back into the scene just to kind of bridge everything together a bit. Oh, there's also a nice little hill here. I think I want to put that in with a lighter color. maybe oh, you know what? I'll use this really this orange light because it's the right value and it's fairly close to the color. I think by the time it mixes in with what I need, it'll be good. I'm going to add that little hill in there. And see, I just went over those scrubby bushes there because I realized that hill really needs to jump over them a little bit. So you can change your mind really easily with oil pastels. And that is something I really like. And I'm just going to add a little olive green behind it to help push that back a bit. And I'm going to put the little bushes back in. Might even go in with a little bit of the softer white. Ooh, that's like buttery soft. And see, it almost is manipulated like paint when you're using those soft pastels. And the soft pastels kind of dissolve the harder pastels, the soft oil pastels. Remember, everything, when I say soft pastel in the context of this lesson, I'm referring to softer oil pastels like the Light Wish. But it kind of dissolves the stuff underneath. Now, if you want to blend something more and you don't like the texture, you can work over it with the silicone tools until you have achieved your desired level of smoothness. Like if you say, like, I don't like all those, I don't like all that grain, I changed my mind, you can go ahead and, you know, smush it a bit. And because they have pretty fine tips on it, even if you decide later that you don't like it, you can get back in there and you can soften them. You can blend them together without bothering too much else. So don't be afraid to experiment. You know, have fun. You're here to learn. You know, nothing's too precious. Have a good time with it. Okay, so actually, I think I will go in with a little bit. It's got this fence got a little dark back here. This stone wall. So I'm going to go in and put that darker area. It's probably just slightly turning away from the light a bit. And remember, the light colors are a little bit more aggressive. So putting your darks in first will help you preserve those shadows. And then it's quite dark in here next to where this stone wall meets up with the road. I'm going to put that in there too. If you need more detail, you can go into the colored pencil. I don't know. The color pencils will slow you down a bit unless you're going in there just for a little detail. So I would say don't get too reliant on them. Then we've got another little fence up here. I'm going to go ahead and put that right in there with that darker pastel. And then let it disappear behind that hill. Just kind of like have it come in from the side and just disappear. And then I'm going to go up here where we have this stone wall that's it's kind of tricky because it's kind of going up to the horizon line and then it's dipping down and going down the hill. So I'll set that there so you can see it at the same time. The reference photo is linked in the video description. Now, if you're like, Lindsay, I need that a little sharper. What do I do? There's a couple things you can do if you need to sharpen a pastel. Again, you can go in with a colored pencil if you want to, but maybe you don't need that much detail. What you can do is you can either scribble this on your palette, or you can break your pastel and that gives you a nice sharp edge, or you can take a palette knife and actually cut it to a sharp point. But since I just broke this one, I'm going to go ahead and put that edge that I just made. And I am going to draw in that really fun wall there and get that in back there. Let's see, we've got a little hill here, so that's gonna kind of gets lost and found. And then it kind of disappears and you see up here. I'm sorry if my hand gets in the way. I'm gonna tip that because I'm having a hard time seeing where I'm painting this exactly. I always think it's funny how, like, I will look at a subject and like, "Oh, that'll be a really easy, simple painting," but then when you really look at it, it's like, "Oh, no, there's all this, like there's all these wonderful details that, I just didn't even notice before." Like, it looks like there's a little stone wall way back there too, and I think I'm gonna put that in. I like that. I like repeating that motif, and it can just kinda disappear behind the hill. Maybe a little bit thicker here on this end, and as it goes up the page, it gets smaller because it gets further away, but then it just dips behind the hill, and I think that's really kind of fun. And then we've got, this is gonna be stone wall here. I'm just gonna go ahead and block it in. Block it in when we just throw down some color. It's more of like, a placeholder and reminds us that, yep, we gotta don't forget that wall is there. And we can see a little sliver of that dark on that side. And I'm just looking at this, this has got a little turn to it. I'm wondering, you can see a little bit of that dark turn there, but the way the wall goes, really not seeing too much shadow, maybe a little shadow behind that little turn in the wall. Okay, yeah, I guess we probably could have drawn this out on scrap paper and then transferred it, but that's fun. It's fun to kind of just go right for it like this, I think. All right, now I want to put some highlight on that wall. I'm going to use this lighter pastel. And I want a rather patchy look to it because I want to have that texture. I don't feel like I really need to put like, oh, I'm going to show you that technique with a palette knife right now because I want to get a little bit of a sharper edge. I don't want to really be putting in little stipples or anything at that stage. I would rather wait to the end because I want to have shadow at the front. I want to have more detail, at the front. So you can just use your knife to kind of cut a little edge for it. Don't try to get too sharp because it's just going to break and you're just going to waste pastel. But you can give yourself a nice little edge that's going to make it easier for you to manipulate the pastels. And I'm just going to say, okay, I've got just a little rim of highlight on the top of that wall for a while. So I wanted to get that in there. And then I'm going to take this dark pastel. I can just use this one. Get this side of the wall that's in shadow up here. And then I can, again, graze the top of that wall with this lighter pastel. And it's okay if it skips and you don't see everything because give it a little more wall in the shadow there. That's okay because, light is just going to kind of dance on the surfaces of these rocks. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull that on the top of the wall there, just so I kind of have a mental note that that's the highlight on the top of the wall. And now I'm seeing a lot of kind of that yellowy gray on the stone wall. I don't know if I need that yet, but sometimes, almost as a mental note, if I see something, I just want to go ahead and put it in so I don't forget. I feel like you can be very in the moment here with oil pastels. And I think that yellow gray, because the warm sun is hitting the side of the wall so much that having that color temperature of a warmer gray is really helpful and works really well for this. Now, if I had a broken piece of this, I would just rub it on there, but I wouldn't necessarily break it just because look, it's quick enough. It's quick enough to fill in with the stick normal. And when I'm coloring, I will often kind of rotate my pastel. So I do kind of sharpen it up a little bit. So if I do need to go in there with the detail, I have that ability. And then I can add some of this color into that wall back here where the sun's hitting it. And then I will be a little staccato with my um, with my marks to just kind of imply the texture of rocks back there. But I don't need to be too, I don't need to be too like obvious with it. So now I'm gonna take this little bit of olive pastel. I love this color. If Pentel would sell a box of these, man, that's a gorgeous color. This is one that like I wish I had this in Light Wish, but the Light Wish ones, a lot of times you'll find when pastels are really, really soft, they're either really transparent if it's a vibrant color, or they've kind of got a milky quality to them. So like the Sennelier, the really vibrant Sennelier or Haya pastels by Paul Rubens, they're very transparent when you have like a bright red, like a fire engine red or a bright ultramarine blue. So you don't have the coverage, even though they're really bold colors, they don't cover because they're transparent. But with the Light Wish ones, they all cover really well, but you don't get that super intense, like rich, clean green or rich, clean red because of the white that is added to the pastel. And it's that white pigment in the wax that gives it that like buttery quality. And it's also the oil, and you get more oil in those really translucent colors. Now there's a kind of a split rail fence here, so I need to go over this area and just hope that because I drew it, it's going to stay in my mind's eye and my muscle memory, and I'll be able to get back to it. And that's another reason why in the class I encourage you, even if you want to use my pattern, that you draw along with me, because if you've drawn it once and then you've printed the pattern out, even if you don't use your pattern, you use mine, you trace the pattern, you've gotten that muscle memory down. So that's why I would say transfer it on rather than printing it on your paper, because the fact that you traced it, the fact that you drew it, and the fact that you traced it, each time you do that, you are giving muscle memory. You're seeing exactly why those lines are there. I'm doing this a little bit darker to add a little shadow into this area where around the little hut here, little barn or whatever that is, and over where the fence is going to go. So that's why I'm going a little more dense here with this color. So that's a reason why I do that. You can just go in a lot more in depth with the reasoning of why you recommend doing things a certain way when you're doing a class. Now I'm going to take some of this olive too. I'm going to throw this in near the edge of the road. We're building depth here. We haven't added a lot of detail, but we are getting some nice depth in here. And let's see, I kind of want like a warm, soft, buttery straw color. And I'm going to see what I have in my softer pastels. Maybe like this color here, or maybe this color. I've got a couple colors that I think would work pretty well. And I'm just going to very gently kind of scumble over here, and it's going to mix in with the yellow ochre. That color is really pretty. That is tea brown. And one day I used to keep all my pastels in their original boxes. And then I was realizing that I didn't have all the options when I went to use them. And it was kind of frustrating. So what I ended up doing, I'll add some of this up here too. What I ended up doing just at the top of that little hill was I actually started with box lids. I just saved a bunch of box lids, and then I divide them all up by color. And then when I eventually got my pastel drawers, then I put them in drawers by color. Now, there's a point of diminishing returns when you have so many pastels that you have to have like 10 drawers out on your table in order to use them. I think that's too many. But if you have like 4 drawers and you have all of your pastels from different brands arranged in those drawers, that can work really well, because then you have a variety of soft and hard pastels together. You have all the colors, you have all your greens together, so you don't have to look through 3 boxes to see if you have an olive green. You know you have it because they're all together. It's just a really nice, it's a nice situation. I feel like I've got so many pastels now that it's a negative. So I actually took a bunch of my pastels and I mixed them with drying oil and oil paint and made oil sticks out of them because I had so many. Oh, and that's kind of something to mention. Oil pastels are different from oil paint sticks because they contain a non-drying oil. They contain mineral oil generally. And so because it's a non-drying oil, it doesn't oxidize. It will not rot your paper. So you can use it on any paper. You don't have to use it on a treated paper. So you can use it with mixed media over watercolor and it's not going to damage the paper. And it's not combustible either. Although I would not like use rags with oil pastels and then throw your rags in the like washer and dryer. I would use paper towels because any oil is going to be flammable, but they're not combustible like oil paint would and oil paint sticks would be. I'm just using this harder yellow ochre to put some texture in. I'm scribbling. And I think it helps also bring out a luminosity of the color here as we're kind of dragging all the colors together. I'll take a question break in a couple minutes here. So if you do have your questions, remember, type question in all caps, and then I can spot it when I go to look. I also like to, it's kind of like seasoning a dish, right? I'll go through, and if I'm using a color, especially if it's a color I haven't used that much, I'll kind of bring it in here and there if if I feel like I just need a little, I want to make everything more harmonious. Or more blended. If it's like, now I don't like the look at that grain, I think I'll go in and add a little bit of this lighter color. I'll blend it out. So, you can keep making those changes. Nothing is set in stone. It's not like acrylic paint where you start painting and then it dries on you. So if you want to rework an area, you've got to like repaint it again. It's more like oil paint where you've got some time, but it's even better. It's almost like gouache paint really, because you've got indefinite time. Like you can always go in with a damp brush and reactivate gouache. You can always go back in with an oil pastel as long as you haven't added like fixative to it, and you can rework it. So it's such a wonderfully versatile medium. I love how this color right here, this is called dark carmine. It can really lift up any of your greens because it's got enough red in it. Even though it's kind of a brown, it's got enough red that it will really push those other colors. And you can kind of guide the eye through the work. You want to make the eye look over here, you add a little bit of that red. That's going to take that reddish brown without being obnoxious. It's going to grab the attention. Bring the eye down by this edge of the fence there. And we haven't really done any detail, so keep that in mind. We're just kind of blocking in here. All right, I'm going to see if we have any questions. Give that some time to firm up a little bit. Okay, Sarah asks, can you use other mediums over oil pastels? Oil pastel generally is going to be your last layer in a mixed media piece, but you can use oil paint over oil pastels and it will stick. Whoops. Gwen asks, when you say pastels, how does one know it's not chalk pastels? Well, in this specific tutorial, I'm saying it's every time I refer to pastels, I'm referring to oil pastels, but you really need to look at the context of what you're looking at. Does it look chalky? Does it look dusty? That would be a soft pastel or a chalk pastel. Does it look like really creamy and blended like an oil painting? Then it's likely an oil pastel. So you do have to kind of look at the context, or any pastel I use in my oil pastel class is going to be oil pastels because they don't really work that well with chalk pastels. You could use them over a very thin layer of pan pastel, but I don't really like to mix them with chalk pastels, but they go over pretty much everything else. H asks, when it comes to displaying a picture, how do you display it without transferring, or do you put a coating on top like a varnish? The best case, if you're working on paper with oil pastels, is to put a mat on it, a paper, like a cardboard mat, mat board mat, and then use glass, not plexiglass, because you don't want anything that's going to flex and touch the surface. and behind glass in a frame. If you're working on board or canvas and you want to display without glass, you can brush on a water-based varnish like Minwax polyacrylic, and that works really well. If you're having a difficult time, if your varnish wants to bead up on you and you're using a water-based varnish, you may need to spray it with a few coats of fixative, and then you can brush on a water-based varnish. If you want extra protection after the water-based varnish, you can use an oil-based varnish. Basically, what you need is your varnish not to reactivate your oil pastel. If I used oil-based varnish on top, it would just smear everything. So you need an isolation coat, which would be your water-based varnish. And that's what I do anytime I paint it on like a wood panel or canvas, and it works great. Okay, let's see. Brenda Walsh asks, are colored pencil the same material as oil pastels? Not exactly. They contain pigment and wax, and oil pastels contain pigment, wax, and an oil, but they are compatible. So that's why I use them together. The waxier, softer pencils work better with your oil pastels. We'll do that a little bit at the end. Somebody asked, can I use the water soluble as my harder pastel under the soft ones? So I think Chronicles of Jen is asking, can I use like a water soluble oil pastel and then use the softer regular oil pastels on top? You can. Um, I think that would work. That would work all right, but the two blending together might give you a little bit of a problem. I'd say give it a try if you already have the products. Give it a try and see how it works. I have both kinds, so I guess I stick to one kind or the other, and I prefer the traditional kind than the water soluble kind for oil pastels because they're a little bit more opaque. Uh, Oh, Pamela's asking questions with the Montmartre 48 pastels. I don't have the Montmartre. I believe they're on the soft side. But if anybody, oh, they're water soluble. I've never tried the water soluble Montmartre. I did see those came out, but yeah, I don't know. I've used the Crayola. They're nice, and I've used the Mungio. I can't vouch for any other ones because things are water soluble products are hit or miss. Just like the Mungio makes a watercolor crayon that is so hard, it's almost like a watercolor pencil, versus Neocolor or eye crayon watercolor crayons are just soft and creamy and more of like a pastel. So yeah, it's kind of hit or miss. If anybody else has used those and can give her some advice, please type it in the chat. That would be really helpful. And I believe the chat replay will be there after the live broadcast, so you should be able to enable that and see it. I think I have that box checked, hopefully. I just saw Joe mentioned the ads. I'm sorry. I clicked not that I didn't want to add ads in the middle, but I think I clicked the thing where I didn't want to post them, but I guess YouTube's going to do its thing. But don't worry, the replay will contain everything. It shouldn't cut in and out. I don't know. Honestly, I'm so rusty with live streaming. So I do apologize. I'll have to look at the settings. Thank you, Gina, for the $5 super chat. That was very kind of you. That's very nice. Oh, it's buffering. That's too bad. I've got a good internet connection, so I'll really have to look into that and see what's going on. I apologize for any inconvenience. Yeah, because I didn't want to have ads in the middle of it because I'm promoting a class and it's one big ad, friends. Okay, empty nest scrapper. I can't remember if I answered her question before, but this is something I did discuss at the beginning. I have Neocolor 2, which are a water-soluble crayon, Primo water-soluble crayons. Can they be used in the same way as the pastels that are not soluble? Yes, if you've got both of those products, use the Neocolor 2 for the hard pastels, the harder crayons, and use the Prima as the softer ones on top. They're not exactly the same, but they will be compatible to each other. Oh, and a $10 super chat from Providence Valley Farm. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you. I don't know why I'm not seeing those either. Probably because I was too busy looking at my painting, but I do appreciate that. That's very kind of you. That is definitely not going to go to waste. Let's see. Melissa Aldasari asks, sharing Hobby Lobby has the silicone fingertip things, 99 cents for a 3-pack in their resin section. Oh wow, that's really cheap. That's much cheaper than the Mod Podge one. So thank you for the recommendation. I wonder if they're the same ones that Dollar Tree sells. I meant to pick up a pack at Dollar Tree because I only have one. I've lost my other two. I don't know where they ended up, but I'm down to one, but I managed to hang on to it. So I don't want to tempt fate. Um, Durwoods 206 asked, I am planning to go outside at lunch with my Sennelier and Neo Art to draw. Should I approach this like watercolor painting, meaning put the background colors in first? Um, Let's see, you're using the Neo Arts are really quite hard. I think the Neo Arts are better for sketching and the Sennelier are better for, like filling in really strongly. I don't know how those 2 will work. I think they'll probably work all right together, but I don't think they'll blend together too terribly well. I would say experiment and see what you come up with. When you're painting outside, you kinda gotta have a very open experimental mind, and you just gotta go for it and see what works for you. Okay, I think I've caught up. I'm just gonna go to the end, see if anything new has come up. If I do miss your question, don't be shy. Post it again. Um, I certainly am not perfect. All right, I think. All right, I think I'm caught up. We'll do another round of Q&A at the end of this, but let's finish her up because we are already an hour and 21 minutes into this painting. I'm going to go for this little hut here, which is also made of stone, and it's very much in highlights. So I am going to fill it in with a gray, which may seem silly because it's about the same color as the paper, but let's just get that in. And then I'm going to go in with my darker oil pastel. Was that the dark one? Deep gray. Oh, this one's a little darker. I'm going to do this one. Let me peel it back a little bit. My grays were breaking today. And these are what my pastels, this is what they look like. These boxes of pastels look like after the 10 paintings that we did in this class, because I started these fresh with the Oil Pastels Made Easy class. So you still have a lot left. They just don't look, very perfect. But that's all right. We're not building a museum for art supplies, are we? No, we're not. We bought our art supplies to use them, not to make a museum of them, right? And there's like a little like window or something in our little hut. So I'm just gonna draw that in there. And I am going to kind of stipple in there, give it some rocky texture, hopefully. I'm gonna do the same with a medium pastel, because really I'm giving like just the impression of the texture to that. So I'm just stippling. The roof has a bit of it looks like it's wooden. I'm going to use a color pencil for that. And I'm just going to take this sienna brown here. You don't have to keep your pencils really sharp. You may need to sharpen some of them, but I find if you sharpen them too much, with the amount of pressure you have to use to get them to lay down on the paper, it just snaps them. So I usually don't bother too much, but you do need to wipe them off because they are going to pick up debris from the paper. And this little window, even though it is lighter, I think it looks like light wood, but I don't know if that's really that effective. I think I'm going to draw some little lines in it, see how it looks. I might end up just darkening it though. And it's got quite a shadow underneath it. So I'm actually going to go with black. You could use a dark gray, but for the class, I'm just recommending the set of 36 Prismacolor pencils because it's a really well-rounded set. I'm adding a little black shadow under the eave here. It's a wonderful set. It really gets the job done. I'm just gonna scribble in kind of some rock shapes under my I'm just drawing like ovals pretty much to show the texture. Wipe off my pencil. Yeah, a little bit more. I need some of that yellow gray, actually. I think that would look really nice in here where the sun's really hitting it. With some of that in the windows. I don't like that window. I wish I left it just open so we could see what was in behind it. But I guess it would probably be shadow because it'd be inside the hut. It's weird just having it straight on like that. I don't think I really like that much, but we can adjust that stuff at the end. I'm not gonna worry about it. Now for our fence. I'm going to draw the fence in with a colored pencil. I don't know if it will really show up. I think I'm going to go right in with a black, even though it's quite a light fence. The shadows on it would be pretty dark. So I'm just going to put my fence posts in. Now, the neat thing that I noticed with colored pencil is that when I use colored pencil, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. When I use colored pencil, it almost, especially the black, it almost like it dissolves into the oil pastel. Like the oil pastel kind of breaks it down a bit. So it actually, even though it's kind of hard and wants to scrape away, if you go slow, it will tend to just kind of dissolve. I think because we're just really putting in a what do I want to say? Like an impression of the fence. We're not even like putting in a lot of detail. I feel like that should be back a little bit more, maybe. But honestly, I think we just put a little hint of it and we call it a day. I could try adding some white highlight. The white doesn't stick quite as well as the black. If we go slow, we can highlight some little areas. Oh, you know what? I think I left out a chunk of fence, but yeah, maybe I'll put that in there. I feel like it does need to go a little beyond a little bit further. And plus we have some shadow on the ground that we could do with the pencil that I think would look quite nice. Ah, that's better. It's a wonky little fence, but it is in the reference photo. I think it's charming. It's an artisanal fence. Somebody ever gives you a hard time about the way you drew something or the way you made something, it's artisanal. All right, that's all right. I keep looking up to where my camera normally is when I'm filming, but instead of looking at my computer, I'm using a webcam. That's totally a different thing. All right, I want to, you know what? Let me use a little black on that roof because I need that dark value, even though it's kind of like a reddish brown. Because I need that dark value, I'm just going to go right ahead with that dark color, with that black. You know what? I'm going to make this window open. And I'm going to color it in so it looks like there's a window on the other side, but you're also looking down into the bottom of the thing. And let me do a little green. See if this pencil will stick. If you're having a hard time with the pencil sticking, it could be because you got to let your pastels like harden up a little bit. There. Let's look like that. I don't know if that really looks the way I want it to look, but we can always revisit it. Do a little highlight on the sill here at the bottom. And I'll do a little highlight on the roof. All right, we're good. That's good enough. Okay, let's work on the stone wall in the front because really that's where you're going to see the detail. And we can go ahead and use our softer pastels. It'll be a little bit quicker that way. We could also use a palette knife. Actually, let's do that. Let's do the palette knife. I've got my palette right here. And let's grab, I do have some white here on the palette. I think I'll just try to use up this white that I've got here already. I've got a little bit of a taupe color there. I like to have a little bit of a base color down on my paper before I go ahead and use a palette knife, but look how fun and easy that is. We'll go over here where we have the top of the fence here and highlight. Oops, shoot, I got a little low on that one. When I load up the knife, I'll try to, like, if I just want to get it on the edge, I'll just kind of like drag my knife through it like that. And then I can highlight the edges. It's a little, it can be a little bit awkward, but I like how it gives you that almost like painterly. And if you get too much in there, you can just go in with it and scrape it out. So it's not like a huge, it's not a huge problem. A fun way to add texture. And maybe a little bit of a darker, well, you know what, let's take some of this. Got some black in there. Maybe throw in a little bit of a softer gray. You can slice some off or just kind of wipe it off on your palette like that. Oops. As I use a color, I put it in my tray so that I know what I've used. That's why the tray's there. But you could save like a styrofoam tray from, like, if you get meat or vegetables from the grocery store, sometimes they come on a tray. But this can really fill some area quickly, which would be handy if you're out painting plein air. Now, this isn't going to work with, like, somebody had mentioned painting plein air and using the neo art. The neo art is too hard for this technique. This is best with the softest pastels. Put that up there. Like, I don't want to put individual stones up there. I'll definitely keep that a little bit rougher. Okay, so now I'm going to use some pastels, though, to draw some more, like, rockier shapes. Less detail as you go back. And I think I'll take this black pastel and actually add in some shadow areas. And I do use black with oil pastels. I don't use black with every medium, but I do feel like especially if you're on a limited supply, having that really dark value you can reach for is very handy. And in fact, I think I'm going to use some of that in the grass area under here too, where it's really shadowed, and I'll probably even put some into the road. But one thing I will do is, if I'm using black, let's just get that shadow on the road too. Shadow from the fence. Is I will blend it out with the color, the local color of what I'm working on. So if I'm using this like gray and I put the shadow in with the black, I'll use the gray to blend it out, and then it won't seem quite so harsh. And plus, if you've got an area that's already kind of set up, blending it with a pastel does help it blend a little bit. Okay, maybe I'll take a little bit of that. I might use a palette knife for that on the road. Well, I got a little bit of blue and black on my palette knife already, so I don't really clean off my palette here. It seems like I'm always using the same colors, so. Actually, maybe getting some texture on the road with this. Oh, I love that texture. I hope this live stream today has made you curious about oil pastels and not scared you away from them. To clean up when you're done, spraying your table with a little bit of alcohol and then wiping up with a paper towel does a really great job at getting any residue. And then maybe take one of these rubber tools just to soften it a bit. I don't want to get rid of all the texture. I kind of like some of that texture in the road. I almost feel like I want that to be a little bit more like a path, like car tracks, tire tracks or something. Sometimes you got to wait, you got to see it in a day or two, and then you can decide exactly what you want to do. Going over the black in this grass in the shadow with my olive hard pastel. Put a little bit of that over here too. Well, it's still got sometimes I'll take my pastel where it's got that residue color on it, and I will just kind of add it into other shadow areas. Pick up some of the black on the pastel, come over here, get a little shadow. Let's see, do I want to use any of this left on the knife? Oh, that looks good. Just kind of dabbing in there, getting some of those less defined rocks. Cross-pollinate my colors a little bit by taking the dirty palette knife over to the other side of the stone wall. Maybe even dabbing a little bit of, oops, that had a lot on it. Give the indication of there being a little more texture on this wall back here. All right, let me take this and draw some stones here. And we can also go into their colored pencil and draw around some stones to give a little bit of detail, but we don't want to detail everything. Well, I don't. You can do whatever you want to do. Honestly, your stone wall can be like a photograph if you want it to be. That's a great thing about art. You can do whatever you like. I'm going to grab some of that green, carve back in where I got the wall a little thick. And now back to the black pencil. I think what we're going to do, we're going to finish up this and then I'll take Q&A at the end. So I'm going to walk you through the tail end of this picture. I am going to go through and just draw some random stones here. Not going to see so much detail in the shadow here. Just drawing some ovals basically. And where I have the little crumbs where the stuff kind of balled up, I will just kind of smush it down with my tool. You can even lift up if you get too much in one area, you can lift it up and move it elsewhere. That's where the sculpting kind of comes in. I'll have to set up a little bit because it's a bit of a hot mess at the moment. Just going to tap in some texture. So basically, a lot of times, if I'm kind of like, I feel like all my shapes are the same, I'll just kind of tap in some shapes with a pastel or a tool like that. I can, let's see, what light, we had a light gray that was a really soft one, I think. Ooh, this color's nice. I don't even think I've used this. Well, I've used this color a little bit. This has a little bit of a green to it. I think that might be kind of nice for some of our rocks. And the value is right. It's a nice light value. We'll put some bigger shapes towards the bottom of the page and smaller as we go up. Maybe some from the tops of these, where it's more highlighted. Now I'm going to draw around some of our, I'm going to look for shapes. You're like, okay, what can I see that looks like a shape that could be a stone? And I'm going to let that be my guide. So I look for all these little look at the marks that I made with my tools and my pastels, and I'll just kind of draw around some of them, especially on this side because it's so lit up. I'm going to be able to see, I would see more of the details, those like sharp shadows between the rocks. Over there, it's more in shadow. I'm not going to see quite as much. And then as we go further back, I will turn my rocks more into scribbles just for some texture. Ooh, I kind of like a little bit of lavender in there because we had those lavender. We had that little bit of lavender, like pink back there. I like that. I think I'm going to put a little bit of, and no, that's not in the picture, but I like to push the colors a bit. Maybe even a little bit of pink. Ooh, this one right here is not very vibrant, but it's very similar. It's a little bit more orange, but by doing that, that pink will help the green pop and will also advance forward because it's a lighter color, especially on this warmer side where we've got more of the sunlight hitting. Okay, and I feel like I need a little bit over there. Maybe some like, oh, let's do this. What was that green? Oh, let's use this kind of sky, the color we had up in the sky. And a few of these, just kind of to bring some rock shapes in here, but still keep that color temperature cool, but also repeat some stuff that we've had in the picture already. Okay, now I want to take some pencil. Let me take the black one here. Oops, let's wipe it off. On this side, I'm going to add a little bit of texture into the grass with the black pencil. I'll take the green as well. I don't know if any of it will stick, but that's all right because it's pretty dark over here. Oh, it is a little bit. And I can bring in some longer grasses right here at the bottom to kind of add a little bit of scale. Drag it up over the rocks to help bury the stone wall in. Oh, I can go back in if I want some more crisp definition around some of these rocks. Now that we've got all these weird shapes over here too, we can start to pull out rock shapes like we did over there. Now, what you can do in the course of an hour and a half is going to be different than what you could do if you decide you were going to spend all day on a painting. You're going to keep working on something back and forth. You know, you're going to pick away at it a little bit every day. You know, you can definitely get a lot more detail than what I'm going to get in a hour-long live stream or 2-hour-long live stream. So if this looks a little too messy and scary, don't let that dissuade you from trying oil pastels, because you can get as much detail as you want, just letting things rest, letting things firm up. We forgot our tree. We're going to do a tree back there. Remember that? And let's see, do I have a piece of parchment paper handy? Ooh, I do not. So I'm just going to put my hand down and rest my arm on my hand. And we are going to put the little tree. I'm actually going to move it over a little bit because I don't want it lined up to that. And I could have it over there, but then that's smack dab in the center. I don't really like that. Let's move it over here. And this is this tree right there I'm talking about. Instead of having it like lined up with that, I think it'll look better over there. It's because it'll bring the eye through. And I'm using a fair amount of pressure, and I'm just kind of wiggling. And actually, if we look at this, that's going to break. I don't know if I want it quite that high. I think that the stone wall was higher in the photo, so I don't want to have that into the sky, but it is showing into the sky. I do need something a little bit firmer to sketch with, though. That's not quite. Yeah, I'm going to get a brown pastel because this pencil is not going to give me enough. Not going to give me enough pigment for what I want for the base of it anyway. Now I can go in with the pencil and add some detail. I'm going to sharpen this though. So if you have headphones on, I suggest taking them out because I have an electric sharpener. Sometimes if you go slow with a really sharp pencil, it'll just kind of dissolve it on you so that you can still get that detail without snapping the lead. You can also kind of spread out the pigment. It's like an apple tree or something, how it's all gnarly. Let's snap it a little bit. I'm going to add a little black. Black tends to dissolve a little bit better, and I can put in a nice dark shadow on the I was making bread today, forgot to put my rings back on, and, I have a little left-right confusion, I always have, and so, like, I look at my hands to see where my wedding ring is, it's like, "That's my left." Oh, don't you wanna take class from me? I don't know my right from left. At least I'm honest, right? Okay, so we got a little tree there. I'm gonna do another little tree over here. Of course, this is gonna be a little bit thicker, a little bit bigger. Let it overlap the road a bit. I think I'm gonna take a black oil pastel though. It's a firm one. My soft one would be way too smudgy. I'm gonna let that overlap the road a little bit. Get the trunk in, then I'll go in um, with the pencil. I'll probably add some brown in there too, but I need it to have some contrast. I don't do landscapes too often. Definitely much more inspired by still life, but it's fun to do it once in a while, you know? I really love plein air landscapes, so, most of the landscapes I'll be doing outside. Uh, Ooh, not so sure what I think about this one. I may have made an error of judgment. Oh, you know what? I think I'll use this dark red. I think that would work out really well. It'll add a little bit of life. You know how like oftentimes bushes and trees, like early spring before they've budded out, they've got a lot of red to them. And sometimes the buds even look red, even if like on a maple tree, it's not I don't know, it's like the bark is more colorful or something in the spring. Or maybe we just see it because we don't have all the green optically mixing or something. And then I'm gonna throw in some of that red, brown colored. There's all these like little bushes or crabgrass or something that's all, I guess it wouldn't be crabgrass, but it's like this red ground cover. And we see a lot of that over here by this edge. It's probably just dead grasses or something. Now I'm going to use the red. I'm going to start putting in some grasses over here. Oh, you know what? We had some little bushes over there too, but they're just scribbles because they're so far away. We'll just do little scribbles over there to show that we've got something growing. Got some bushes, something that's going to be getting flowery soon. Well, I've done a lot of techniques. I don't know if this is going to be my favorite painting, my favorite oil, probably not. So I can tell you right now, it's not my favorite oil pastel painting ever. But, you know, we did a lot of techniques, and you've got a lot of different ways that you can use your pastels now. Even if you don't take the class, you can still take what you learned here, and you can apply them to the pastels you have at home. And you can try some techniques out. And I think that's important. Sometimes you just got to see a supply in action too. This is just kind of a scribbling. I'm using the pencil to kind of add texture and also blend the pastel and kind of fill in a little bit. But you get to see kind of how it is in action and get some questions answered. And, you know, sometimes it's just good to see how things go. I'm doing these up and down scribbles, and as I get closer to the edge of the picture, I will throw in some longer grasses. I like to throw these like little red ones a little bit longer, maybe throw them right off the edge of the tape. Throw a little bit over here. No one really wouldn't see much of that, but I feel like it needs to carry over. I'm just doing a little bit of scribbling back here just to give a little texture to the stone wall because I feel like it goes from texture to nothing. And I want it to gradually go a little bit less textured as you go back. I like the little bits of pink that's showing up, though, from the underdrawing. And I kind of feel like I need a little bit of red right at the base of that. I like that. I like that red. That red is nice. What do we get going back to that? That fence actually should be a little bit darker. We can do that with a pencil though. Oh, scrape off the. I can't wait to take the tape off. Let's scrape off some of the stuff there. And you just, you keep kind of noodling around and adding detail if it feels like it's warranted and taking a break. Actually, when you're doing the class, there's a lot of opportunities to take breaks. And I really recommend that because there's like a little fence here. Because when you take a break and then you come back, you're going to see if something is off or not. And if you just stay and kind of like, power through, then you can end up just doubling down on errors or making hasty decisions. All right, I feel like I need a little bit of highlight at the top of those, at the top of the fence, and oh, there's my white. I didn't recognize it. It's so blue. And I'm just going to very gingerly, shoot, not like that, highlight some edges. And take my palette knife and scrape out that big boo-boo. Like it was never there. Picking up some darker color. I don't know what I have going on here. This does not look. Something is not right here. I think I need to pull the bottom of this fence down a little bit here and bring it up. Where is my ground? I got my fence a little thick. Ooh. Oh my gosh, making a mess. And a break would have solved that problem if I'd taken a break. That's all right. That's all right. Teachable moments. Teachable moments. We're going to fill that in. I'm going to take a little bit of this brown color. And I need to bring that gray a little bit further down, right about there, I think. Give it a little turn in the fence so it's not so weird. It's not perfect, but I think it's not bad. I think it's all right. Defining the edge of the road a bit. Find the back side of the fence a little bit. All right, I think I'm ready to take the tape off this. Let me just think if there's any other little bits that I want to do. Maybe just one little highlight on the edge of the road. Wipe off my light gray pastel. I feel like it could use just a little bit of a highlight there. All right, let's call this done and get your questions ready. If you have them, I will take the tape off and then answer them. You'll be able to look at this painting with a lovely border. So what I use actually just to put my oil pastel paper down, I tape it into this old Arches watercolor block, old pad that's used up, because it's got the cover. If I do need to set it away, like maybe it's a Friday afternoon and I know I'm not going to get back down to the studio until Monday, but I want to let the studio air out. So the door's open and I have the setting down. I'll just close it. And that way, if a cat comes in and decides to hop on my table, I'm not going to get cat hair in it. Or if I just want to put it away for a while and work on something else, then it can be covered. And generally I would clean my hands before I took the tape off, just so I don't get smudges on the corners. But that's what the tape protects, really. It protects the paper. And there is our finished oil pastel painting. After it firms up, I would just sign my name with a pencil, or you can even scratch your name in with a toothpick or something. It's totally up to you. And I might even look at it in like a couple days and be like, I think I'm going to add a little bit more to that. So if you have any questions, I actually am going to clean my hands off, because if I touch the computer, I will get grime all over it. So I just spray alcohol onto a paper towel and then I can wipe my hands. All right, I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way back up. Oh, thank you, Empty Nest Scrapper. She loves the project. I have a feeling I'll be revisiting that and be probably fiddling with it a little bit. Okay, question from Durwood206. If I apply color and realize it's too dark, should I try scraping it or apply lighter color on top? If you know it's a mistake, scrape it off. But if it's like a shadow to something and it's not real muddy, then I would go ahead and just add color over it. I mean, even if you add color over it and you don't love it, then you can always scrape it back. Not a big deal. It's pretty sculptural in that way. Oh shoot. Hold on. I hit a button. Linda asks, do you paint plain April? I did it last year. I didn't get the whole thing done, but I started it and it was pretty fun. It's very cold here in Maine still. We still get snow in April. So yeah, I'm definitely not committed to it. Oh, thank you, Clark Fine Art, for posting that you can enroll during the launch month special for 50% off, or use the coupon code OPLaunch. Thank you so much. Yes, the deal is good for the month. So if you're thinking about taking Oil Pastels Made Easy, then grab it this month and you'll get the lowest price ever. And I'm looking for the word question in all caps. So if I miss your question, you can post it again. Renee Scott asks, I like using the Sennelier fixative. If you spray a few coats on the piece, will color pencil leave more pigment? The Sennelier fixative is very glossy. I would use, if you must spray it with a fixative, I would probably say, if it's not your final layer, maybe try Krylon workable fixative, but test it on a scrap first on the paper that you like to use and see how that works. I typically don't add fixative until I am done. So if I would use, or the Brush and Pencils texture fixative. That's meant for colored pencils, but it should be compatible. I've used it with oil pastels before. That could help bring back a little tooth. It's still probably going to scrape through it though, so I don't know if it really gives you much benefit. Question by Artia's Arts. Oops, I gotta find that here. I don't see it. Oh, have you used oil pastels on linen canvas? Also, can you use Gum Teen by Gumbucker as a solvent? Is this made from orange oil? I don't know. If you have it, give it a try and see if it works. Yes, you can use oil pastels on linen canvas. You could use it on any canvas. I would just protect it with a water-based varnish when you're done. I use Minwax polyacrylic anytime I am gonna varnish my oil pastels and not have them under glass. If you want more protection, you can do an oil-based varnish after the polyacrylic is dry, and that the polyacrylic will act as a isolation coat, so the oil-based varnish can be removed for cleaning if need be in the future. It's something that I've found works. I don't know if it's 100% archival. I've had stuff hanging for over a year that has no problems with it, but I just want to put that caveat out there because polyacrylic is not an art supply. It just works really well. Oh, Brenda says she's watched 5 of the lessons from oil pastel class so far and is excited to start. She likes to watch everything first. Thank you so much. Sorry for the dead air. I'm just scrolling back and looking for the word question. Um, let's see. Martine McFarlane asks, how do you figure out which different brands of pastel will mix together? Do they say on them if they're solvent or water soluble? Thanks. Yes, if an oil pastel doesn't say water soluble, it's a regular oil pastel. There aren't too many water soluble oil pastels out there. Like I said, I've used Prima and Mungio. They seem to be the same in the Crayola portfolio. They are all clearly labeled water soluble. I haven't tried the Montmartre. Um, and honestly, I prefer a traditional oil pastel, and I haven't tried all the traditional oil pastels, and they all kind of go in a range. So I would get out whatever you have, and I would start swatching it. And if it feels really soft, like a lipstick, put it in one tray. If it feels harder, like an eyeliner pencil, I would put it in another tray, and then you'll have a variety to work from. They don't have to be the brands that I used in the class. Just take what you learn, what you have, and then add to it as need be, because that's going to give you the best. That's gonna give you the best use of what you have. I use a bunch of different versions. Actually, Crayola makes their Crayola's regular oil pastel comes in 28 colors for like $10, I think, probably less. Those are a really nice pastel. They're a hard pastel like the Pentel, but you could use those for your bottom layers. So if you can't get the Pentel, get the Crayola, get Craypas, or just try whatever you can find locally. Sometimes it used to be that pretty much all oil pastels would be pretty decent. Now I find some real cheap ones that they kind of are gummy and they just ball up when you try to color with them and they're not very pigmented. But in general, I found there to be less quality difference between like a pastel like we're using in class here and the super expensive ones. So it's kind of like gouache where there isn't a huge you can get a really good result from a not very expensive pastel. But you're going to sacrifice light fastness and stuff. But if you're learning and you don't want to be precious about your materials, then it's a great option. Crafty Cat says or asks, I have the Mungio Gallery and the Artichoke pastels. Is that good enough? I don't have either of those. I have some that I think are made by Mungio Gallery, but I'm not 100% sure. Swatch them out. Use whichever's harder for the hard pastels. Use whichever's softer for the soft ones. I think the Mungio Gallery are kind of in the middle, and you may be able to do everything with just with those. So yeah, give it a try. I have a feeling that they may be on the softer side. So if nothing else, an $8 box of these is all you're going to need for pastels to add to that, which is great because you don't have to spend a lot to do that. But just try it with the Mungio, honestly. See how far you get. I have a feeling they'll probably be pretty good because they're kind of in the middle from what I have gathered. I'm definitely going to order some though. I'm very curious about them. I'm curious to see if they're the same because Mungio does private label for other companies. I'm curious if some of my favorite pastels are actually made by Mungio. Gwen asks, I missed the start, but do you put the soft pastels, then the hard ones? In general, now we did the sky first and I knew I wanted it to blend, so I use the soft ones. But in general, I use my harder pastels first. And this goes for whether I'm using chalky, quote unquote, soft pastels or I'm using oil pastels. I put the harder ones first and then I layer up the softer ones because soft will stick on top of hard, but hard usually won't stick on top of soft. You may be able to scratch in a good detail with a hard pastel over soft. But in general, if you're layering, you want your hard layers first and your soft layers on top. And I actually have a whole segment in the basics lesson in my Oil Pastels Made Easy that really explains that and how you may use oil pastels with other media too. It's the fat over lean rule, or it's actually the fat over or the soft over hard rule, or fat over lean. It's your softer, fattier layers would go over your harder, leaner layers. So once you get that concept, it actually makes a lot of media make sense. Oh, I think I already answered that. Okay, I think I'm caught up, but I'll just check at the end to see if any last minute questions came in. Oh, somebody's saying the Artist Loft oil pastels are not good. I have not tried them, so I don't know. Rebel asks, can Neo Pastel work in place of Pentel? Absolutely. They're a great option. And if you're not precious about using them, go for it. They are fabulous. I love those. Those are probably my favorite pastels is the Neo Pastel, but I still want to use some soft ones on top. So the Paul Rubens and the Sennelier are my go-tos for softer ones, or the Lightwish ones. Lightwish are new to me. I actually chose them because I knew they were available in stock online. There was a lot of availability, and they were a set I hadn't broken up and put into my pastel drawer, so I knew I had a full set there. So that's why I chose them. But honestly, you use what you have. Melissa asks, have you used water-soluble oil pastels? I see Montmart and Mungio have some. I'm wondering if they're more like Neocolor 2s. They're softer than Neocolor 2s. Neocolor 2s are more of a wax crayon that's hot water-soluble. The water-soluble oil pastels by Mungio and by Crayola are very soft and creamy. I don't know about Montmart. I've seen them. They look really small. I don't know. They kind of look a little sus to me. So I don't know. I think there are reviews out there. I think they're a pretty new product, but I haven't been tempted by them because I have some water soluble ones I like. And, um, you know, everything becomes the same after a while. So I haven't reached out when I know there's, good options out there already. Gwen asks, will I spray a fixative over this today or much later? I probably won't fix it. I'm actually not sure if I'm done with it or not, so I wouldn't till I was sure I was done. But honestly, I would just if it's not in a sketchbook, I just wrap it with like wax paper or wrap it with glassine and put it in my storage. If it's in a sketchbook, I would varnish over it with Minimax polyacrylic. And the only thing, well, you know what? I got a picture here I've done with a Sennelier spray. I'll show you what it looks like because it's not what you always want. It's quite glossy. So this one has a Sennelier fixative on it, and it's quite glossy. This is about 4 coats, and it's still, I could rub up some of that pastel in the higher layers, and I'd still frame this under glass. And the only reason I was testing out the Sennelier fixative. That's why I use fixative on this. I really don't see a huge need for the fixative. Honestly, if you're working on paper, your best bet is mat it under glass. If it's an important piece, put a mat on it, put it under glass in a frame. If it's, in holding pattern, wrap it with glassine and set it in a portfolio till you're ready to frame it. If it's in a sketchbook, I would varnish it just because that's going to really prevent it from sticking. But you could use a fixative. I think it's really expensive for how much you get and how far it goes. But, obviously it's your money. You can spend it on whatever you like. That's just my opinion on that. Melissa asks, is Craft Stash closing? Are they still selling your products and fulfilling orders? Yes, they're closing. Yes, they're still selling my products. I actually have a launch coming out with them next month, but it's going to be in whatever their new, they're kind of restructuring, and they're going to have a new website. And I will have a launch with their new website next month. And if anything's left from my current stock, it will migrate over to that website. But I don't know. I did check when I heard they were closing. But nothing was discounted from my line except for my color wheel. But that's a new product, and that's the price it launched at. So Yeah, as far as I know, not everything's moving over. I think they wanna keep their like, their signature brands, but, yeah, Craft World was their sister site, so there's gonna be some sort of, like, combination between Craft World and Craft Stash, and I don't exactly know what's gonna happen, but I know I have a launch next month, so stay tuned. I actually talk about that in Sat Chat a little bit tomorrow, so check that out if you want more info. Crafty Cat says, "I have Mungio Gallery and art." Oh, yeah, I already answered that. Okay. Well, guys, I think I have caught up. Uh, yeah, I'm caught up. I'm caught up. All right. So if you have any questions after the stream, or you think something later, pop them in the comments below this video. I'm happy to help you out. The link to this class is in the video description. If you would like to join me for Oil Pastels Made Easy, you can see the projects that we're doing. We do 10 real-time full projects. And there's also a basic technique section as well as a tutorial archive. If you are looking for more oil pastel action after the class, you'll be hooked up there. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I think it's one of my best classes ever, most in-depth, lots of projects, lots of fun. I definitely think you get your money's worth, and you can save 50% off this month. So if you think you might want it in the future, you can grab it now and you have lifetime access. So you can always pick away at the class, or, do it when you have more time. So thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun painting with you, and I hope you give this a try. You can always watch a replay as many times as you want. Oh, we got one question that just came in from Anita. She says, "Very late to the party. Sorry, Lindsay. I have bought your oil pastel course. Thank you. Will you be adding this lovely painting to the course?" No, it's going to live right here on YouTube, which anybody can access. So it's a try before you buy, I guess. I probably will put a link to it in the tutorial archive, but this is for everyone. Share it with your friends. Let your friends know if they've been ever curious about oil pastel. You can learn a little bit about the medium here anyway, and paint along. So there we go. Thank you so much. Please hit the like button before you go. That's the big thumbs up. And we'll see you next time. See you tomorrow for Sat Chat. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. And as always, happy crafting.